House with President Trump, notwithstanding the fact that Elon Musk was there as part of the U.S. delegation. So it wasn't discussed. The process of having low orbit satellites providing Wi-Fi and internet connectivity is known in South Africa. We've been through that. And there are quite a number of other companies, Chinese companies, European companies, and Russian companies, and many others, and local companies who are interested in getting into that space. So people tend to focus on one company only, and yet we've got a plethora of companies that would want to get into this space. So the environment to enhance or enable investment to happen in that space is precisely what needs to be properly crafted, properly permitted to enable that to happen. So the process that the minister has unleashed is a process that is going to elicit a lot of comment from the public, from various key stakeholders, including current role players in the sector. So that in itself is going to exhibit the true democratic process in our country, that when something new, something that is topical or even desirable has to be flighted or implemented or initiated, it's got to be supported by a lot of discussion, by role players, even by ordinary people. So this is what is good about our country. Nobody ever stands on any platform and says, I'm going to do this. This is not an emperor's land or a dictator's land where you do whatever you like. Our democracy dictates that it has to be by the will of the people, by the involvement of the people, and by their wishes. So that's precisely what is going to ensue with this.
President Ramaphosa, you mentioned a little when you were giving your speech today that one of the things that was put onto the table was a doorway, cooperation between the African continent, something that's so important when it comes to infrastructure, but something that you put on the table. Can you maybe give us a little bit more detail about potential deals that were discussed in Washington?
Well, when we went to Washington, our key objective revolved around three issues. The first issue was to reset our relationship with the United States. A relationship that had gone sour, a relationship that had gone a little bit bumpy, where statements were being made which were not very helpful. And we felt that we needed to reset that relationship because the United States is a very important player. We export a lot of things to the United States. They export or they bring in a lot of goods as well as services to us. So for us, the United States being the biggest economic powerhouse in the world, we needed to reset the relationship. So in my conversation with President Trump on the phone, I said, we want to come and see you. And he said, by all means, please come so that we can discuss a whole range of things. So resetting the relationship was the key issue, one of the key issues. The second one was to set up a process of engagement, to engage on tariffs, to engage on investment, as well as business processes, to discuss how the tariff countries can be calibrated, including AGOA, whether we should carry on with AGOA, whether we should stay in AGOA. So that was primary in our minds, to discuss tariffs, to discuss investment and business relations. And the third thing was to get him to agree to be more favorably disposed towards the G20, because some of these people were pulling out. And we wanted to demonstrate to him that the G20 is important, not only because it's being held in South Africa, but because they, the Americans, initiated or started or established the G20, And so now that it is our time to hand over to them, I told him that I don't want to hand over to an empty chair. So he must come personally so that I can hand over the presidency to him. So those are our three objectives. So what you're talking about deals and so forth, that will now reside in the commitment on both sides to engage. So we are going to engage on a whole range of issues, package of issues that will lead to a deal between South Africa and the United States.
Okay, last question, SABC.
Just two quick ones, Mr. President. Bulelani Philip from SABC. Firstly, President Trump suggests that you must arrest those people who are chanting "Kill the Boer." Is that something that's on your table? And give us an indication. You're saying that you didn't feel ambushed by the video clip that was played by President Trump, but clearly you were. And the last one, the DA has made a resolution that it doesn't support land expropriation without compensation. Is the GNU still intact?
Well, the GNU is still intact. I still have ministers from the DA in my cabinet. Here is one of them. And so the GNU is intact. And of course, various political parties have positioned themselves on the issue of land. But the more people talk about it, the more they articulate their views, the more greater understanding begins to emerge. That what we are seeking to do is very much in line with our constitutional construct. It's in line with Section 25, that yes, the provision of expropriation of land is something that is done all over the world. Many countries have that provision. And we also have modernized our Expropriation Act of 1975. And we've made it more modern. But much more than that, we have made it a much more constitutional process where the judiciary gets involved in a much more direct way when we come to the issue of expropriation, where the views of everyone are heard, and even as it may come to, say, for instance, expropriating without compensation, it will have gone through a long process, a process that will involve the judiciary, but it will also revolve around specific areas or parcels of land, for instance, where the owners are no longer, available or around, where there's a lot of money that is owed and so forth. So those are some of the examples, and we will obviously no doubt see how all that, evolves over time, because this is still a new process for us. And when it comes to the issues of arresting anyone for any slogan, that is a sovereign issue. It's not a matter where we need to be instructed by anyone that go and arrest this one. We are a very proud sovereign country that has its own laws, that has its own processes, and we take into account what the Constitutional Court also decided when it said that, that slogan, "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," is a liberation chant and slogan. And it's not meant to be a message that elicits or calls upon anyone to go and be killed. And that is what our court decided. So they will probably want to arrest people willy-nilly. We follow the dictates of our constitution because we are a constitutional state and we are a country where freedom of expression is the bedrock of our constitutional arrangement.
Okay, thank you guys.
Felicia Jonas will pass as a special envoy heading to the US. Felicia Jonas, what is the update regarding him? Is he still heading to the US as part of your special envoy?
Felicia Jonas was intricately involved in the preparation for this whole trip, discussing a variety of issues right at the center. And he happened to be in London when we went to Washington. So he could not go to Washington, and he's now back here. And we're going to continue having discussions with him. He's very valuable, he makes valuable inputs, and I have a lot of confidence in him.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You ever hear a president speak and think, wait, Did he just casually drop a geopolitical bombshell in between infrastructure buzzwords? That's pretty much what happened when President Cyril Ramaphosa took the mic after his keynote address at the 2025 Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium in Cape Town. And let me tell you, it wasn't just bricks and concrete on the agenda. Oh no. This was a full-on diplomatic flex, with a little Cape Town flair. The Century City Conference Center was buzzing. CEOs, engineers, ministers, even a few sleepy interns pretending to take note. But when Ramaphosa stood up, everything shifted. The man had just returned from a whirlwind visit to the United States. A visit, he made very clear, that was meant to reset South Africa's relationship with the world's biggest superpower. And judging by his tone, it wasn't just a handshake and smile kind of trip. Before diving into his usual infrastructure talk, rail corridors, clean energy, and broadband rollout, Ramaphosa paused. He looked up, smiled that signature calm but don't test me smile, and said, South Africa cannot grow on potholes and misunderstandings. Boom. Mic drop. Translation. That trip to the US, it wasn't just about trade deals, it was about clearing the air. Let's rewind. His visit to Washington D.C. came after months of diplomatic static. The kind where one side says, strategic partner, and the other quietly Googles, how to cancel a bilateral agreement. Between disagreements on global conflicts, vaccine politics, and yes, those uncomfortable discussions about African neutrality, South Africa's relationship with the US had more tension than a family group chat during election season. So what did Ramaphosa do? He showed up, sat down with US officials, talked straight, no sugarcoating, and he walked out of those meetings with more than polite smiles. According to him, there was a renewed sense of cooperation. And not just in vague diplomatic language, he hinted at real movement on clean energy investment, digital infrastructure collaboration, and surprise surprise, AGOA. Yes, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which South Africa was very worried about losing. Back at the conference, Ramaphosa connected all the dots like a man on a mission. He said sustainable infrastructure is not just about roads and bridges, it's about diplomacy, investor confidence, and yes, making sure your country doesn't get booted from key trade agreements because someone thinks you're sitting on the wrong side of a geopolitical fence. And then he got cheeky. In his classic deadpan delivery, Ramaphosa said, America is an old friend. But sometimes, even old friends need to be reminded who they're talking to. The room chuckled, the diplomats shifted in their chairs, and the local business crowd loved it. He also laid out some hard numbers. Billions, yes, billions, with a B, rands are being channeled into long-term infrastructure plans across South Africa. Renewable energy hubs, smart cities, logistics networks, you name it. But he was clear. Without strong international partnerships and investor trust, none of it will work. That's why the trip to the US wasn't a detour, it was part of the plan. And then came the punchline. We build not just with concrete, but with confidence. And if you don't have both, all you have is a very expensive pile of bricks. Classic Ramaphosa, philosophical, practical, and just cheeky enough to keep you listening. So, here's the bottom line. While the media may focus on the politics and the drama, Ramaphosa is out here playing long-game chess. He's smoothing things over with Washington, rallying local industry, and reminding everyone that sustainable infrastructure is about more than roads, it's about direction. The question now is, will the US match South Africa's handshake with action? Or will it be another round of, let's keep talking? Either way, Ramaphosa made his move. Now the world is watching.